Welcome to Rain Talk. Tonight we'll journey together into a frozen world that once covered our planet. A world of silence, where snow fell for centuries and ice shaped everything it touched. So find a calm place, close your eyes and let your mind drift. Because tonight we're going back to a time when ice covered the world. Imagine standing on Earth 30,000 years ago. There are no cities, no lights, no sound except the whisper of the wind over snow. The air is cold and dry. The sky glows faintly grey even in daylight. Where once there were forests and rivers, there is now only a frozen desert stretching endlessly in every direction. The northern continents are buried beneath kilometres of ice. Mountains are hidden below frozen sheets thicker than any skyscraper ever built. Every valley and plain is silent, waiting for the sun that will never truly rise above the horizon. This is the last glacial maximum, the peak of the Ice Age. The ice stretches from the Arctic down to what is now New York. Europe is locked beneath the same frozen crown. In Scandinavia and the British Isles, only the highest peaks rise above the Sea of White. In Asia, massive glaciers crawl down from the Himalayas. Even the heart of North America is silent beneath the cold weight of ice. And yet, the planet is alive. Beneath this world of snow, oceans still flow. Volcanoes still erupt, sending ash into frozen skies. And far south, in the equatorial belt, life continues, changed but enduring. Rainforests are smaller, grasslands wider, deserts spreading farther each year. The balance of life shifts, but it does not end. The air is thinner, the sky clearer. At night, the stars are sharp and endless. Auroras flicker over the frozen plains like green curtains of light. Sometimes the silence breaks, a deep rumble as ice cracks and moves inch by inch like a living creature. It is the slow breathing of the planet itself. This is the rhythm of the Ice Age, a rhythm that has repeated for millions of years, freezing, thawing, and freezing again. Driven by small changes in Earth's orbit, by tiny shifts in the tilt of our axis, by the breath of volcanoes and the slow dance of oceans. The planet has its own heartbeat, too slow for us to feel, but steady, ancient, and true. Now, picture the animals of this world. Giant mammoths, covered in thick fur, roam across the icy plains in search of grass buried beneath snow. Their tusks curve like ivory moons, glistening under a pale sun. Woolly rhinoceroses follow ancient migration routes, their breath steaming in the cold air. Bison move in massive herds, dark shadows crossing the tundra, and in the distance a pack of dire wolves trails them, their eyes glowing amber, their paws silent on the frozen ground. To the north, in the snow-filled valleys, the saber-toothed cat waits in ambush. It moves like a ghost, powerful, quiet, patient. Its long fangs flash for only a moment before it vanishes again into the storm. Life here is hard. Every breath is survival. Every step is the difference between hunger and death. And yet, somehow, life thrives. Humans exist too, scattered, small, fragile against the endless white. They build fires from frozen wood and bones, gather around their flickering light, and tell stories beneath the animal hides. They carve tools from flint, paint on cave walls, and learn to track the movement of the herds. Each night they sleep listening to the cry of the wind and the deep cracking of distant glaciers. In that sound they hear the voice of the world, ancient, wild, eternal. The people of the Ice Age are few, but their imagination is vast. In their art, they leave traces of animals, stars, and dreams. On cave walls deep in France and Spain, they paint mammoths, bison, and horses with colours made from ground earth. Those paintings still survive today, a message carried through 30,000 years of time. They remind us that even in the coldest night, humanity found beauty. Let's travel further north, to the edge of the great ice. Here the air burns your lungs. The snow beneath your feet squeaks with each step. Nothing grows, no trees, no flowers, no moss, only ice, wind, and rock. The landscape feels endless. It is the closest thing to another planet that Earth has ever been. But the ice is not still. It moves. Each glacier creeps forward, grinding mountains into dust. It shapes valleys, crushes stones, and leaves behind lakes that will one day feed rivers. The world we know, its rivers, its plains, its fertile soil, will be the gift of this frozen era. Even as it destroys, it creates. The ice sculpts the face of the earth like an artist with infinite patience. Far below the surface, the weight of the glaciers presses down the crust. Continents bend under the strain. When the ice finally melts, the land will slowly rise again, inch by inch, year by year. That process still continues even now, long after the Ice Age ended. In Scandinavia, Canada, and Alaska, the land still lifts itself upward, remembering the weight it once carried. Back then, sea levels were more than 100 meters lower than today. Oceans retreated, revealing vast new lands that connected continents. Across what is now the Bering Strait, a frozen bridge of earth and ice connected Asia and North America. Through it, herds of animals and the humans who followed them crossed into a new world. That migration changed history forever. Australia, New Guinea, and Tasmania were one single landmass called Sahul. Europe and Britain were united by frozen plains. Even the Mediterranean looked different. Its coasts stretched far beyond the modern shorelines. The world map was not what we know. It was colder, larger, and wilder. As the night deepens, imagine standing on a hill of ice. The wind is slow now. The horizon glows faintly blue. Somewhere far below, frozen rivers glint in the moonlight, and in that stillness you can almost feel the heartbeat of the planet, steady, ancient, alive. The Ice Age was not only an age of cold, it was an age of balance. The earth breathed in frost and exhaled sunlight, and through that rhythm, life learned resilience. The stars above look the same as ours today, yet the world below is utterly different. It is both familiar and alien, a reflection of what Earth has been and what it could become again. For the Ice Age is not gone forever, it sleeps, and deep in the cycles of our planet, the seeds of the next one are already planted. As centuries pass, the ice begins to shift. The world warms slowly and quietly. At first, nothing seems different. The cold nights remain endless. The glaciers still stretch to the horizon. But deep inside the frozen heart of the planet, change has already begun. The sun climbs a little higher each year. Snow melts earlier each spring. Rivers that were frozen for millennia begin to flow again. They carve deep channels through ice and stone, carrying ancient water toward the sea. The air grows heavier with moisture. Clouds gather more often. The once dry tundra awakens with the first green shoots of grass. Life feels the change before it sees it. Birds return to forgotten skies. The sound of flowing water replaces the silence of frost. For humans, the transformation is both promise and threat. The animals they depend on begin to move north, following the retreating cold. Mammoths wander farther each season. Reindeer and bison shift their paths. Tribes must follow or starve. Shelters of bone and hide give way to new forms of life. People discover new plants, rivers, and stone. They settle longer in one place. Fire becomes a tool not only for warmth, but for creation. With warmer days, they begin to shape the world around them. Glaciers continue to melt. The oceans rise. Coastlines vanish beneath the waves. Valleys become lakes. Lakes merge into seas. The planet, once silent, hums with renewal. But for the giants of the Ice Age, the warmth is deadly. Woolly mammoths grow fewer. The saber-toothed cats disappear. The great herds shrink and vanish. One by one, the creatures of cold fade into memory. Their bones sink into thawing earth. Their shadows remain only in the stories of humans who once hunted them. A balance breaks, and the age of ice yields to the age of people. Humanity spreads. They follow rivers south, cross mountains, build the first villages. Stone tools evolve into spears, then into art. Language grows. The first seeds are planted. The story of civilization begins. The ice retreats northward, leaving behind a sculpted world. New lakes glitter where glaciers once rested. Rivers trace new paths through fresh soil. Forests rise in the places of endless snow. Life reclaims what was frozen. Yet traces of the Ice Age remain everywhere, in the shape of valleys, in the course of rivers, in the minerals that feed the land, even in our own blood, the resilience that allowed our ancestors to endure. When you look at a mountain today, you see the work of ice. When you drink from a river, you taste water released from glaciers thousands of years old. When you breathe cool morning air, you feel the echo of that ancient cold. The earth never forgets. It keeps records in stone, in ice cores, in the DNA of every living thing. We are all children of the Ice Age, but the planet keeps turning. Warmth follows cold, just as night follows day. And deep beneath the polar caps, ice still waits, patient, eternal, listening. Even now, in the silence of Antarctica and Greenland, glaciers hold the memory of every storm, every flake, every breath of air from long before we were born. Close your eyes again. Imagine standing on the edge of that ancient ice. The wind whispers stories older than language. The stars shine over a sleeping world. And somewhere in that stillness, you understand. The planet is alive, and it remembers. Tonight, as you drift to sleep, remember that everything around you, the land, the sea, the air, was once shaped by the same ice. It carved the ground beneath your home. It cooled the oceans that feed the rain. It taught life how to endure. The ice age may be gone, but its spirit remains in every snowflake, in every mountain stream, in every quiet night. So rest now. Let your thoughts move like slow rivers beneath the stars. Let the sound of rain remind you of the melting ice, of renewal, of time itself. The story of Earth continues, and you are part of it. As the world warms further, new life begins to flourish. Forests stretch across lands that were once tundra. Rivers overflow, carving new valleys and shaping fertile plains. The air fills with the sound of birds that have not sung for tens of thousands of years. Human tribes grow and change with the land. They no longer wander endlessly across frozen plains. They begin to settle, to build, to dream of permanence. Villages form near rivers rich with fish and soil ready for crops. Humanity takes its first steps towards civilization. Stone by stone, they learn to shape their surroundings. Fire becomes hearth. Shelter becomes home. The old fear of the endless cold turns into memory and story. They still remember the ice, though. They tell their children about the white horizon, the giants of the tundra, and the endless nights where stars ruled the sky. The Ice Age becomes legend, a story of survival passed down through voices and flames. As time moves forward, the last mammoths walk the earth. Isolated on cold islands in the Arctic, they cling to existence for a few thousand more years before vanishing completely. When the final one falls, an era ends. The glaciers retreat into the highest mountains and the farthest poles. The earth breathes again, greener and warmer. Life expands in every direction, painting the world in new colours. But nature never stays still. The warmth that brings abundance also brings change. Great floods follow as the ice melts. Seas rise and swallow low lands. Rivers find new paths. Entire regions vanish beneath the growing oceans. For the people of the time, the world itself seems alive. Unpredictable, powerful, full of both generosity and wrath. They adapt again, as they always have. They learn to sail, to move across the waters that now divide the lands. Curiosity replaces fear. Discovery replaces survival. And beneath the surface of all this growth, the memory of ice remains. The earth carries its imprint like scars beneath the skin. Scientists today can still read those scars, layers of ice that trap ancient air, tiny bubbles that whisper the climate of the past. From them, we know how fragile the planet's balance truly is. The rhythm that once froze the world still beats quietly. Small changes in sunlight, oceans and atmosphere can begin the cycle anew. The next ice age could return, though not in our lifetime. The planet remembers how. Look to the stars again. They have watched all of it. The freezing, the melting, the rise of forests, and the birth of people. The universe does not hurry. It watches, waits, and moves in patterns far slower than we can see. When you listen to rain tonight, imagine it falling on the ancient glaciers, the same water, the same sky, the same cycle. What melts now may one day freeze again. What ends now will begin again. Because the story of Earth is not about endings. It is about transformation. Ice becomes water, water becomes life, and life becomes memory. Everything that exists carries a trace of what came before. Every raindrop, every stone, every breath you take holds a fragment of that frozen world. So, as you rest, let the sound of rain remind you that time moves in circles, that the past still lives within the present, that nothing truly disappears. It only changes form. When you open your eyes tomorrow, the same planet will be beneath you, ancient, living, remembering, a world that once was frozen and may one day be again. And until then, let the rain keep telling its story, a story of ice, warmth, and the unbroken rhythm of Earth. Sleep well. The Great Thaw. 20,000 years ago, the Ice Age reached its height. Glaciers stretched across a third of the planet. The world was locked in cold silence. And then, slowly, the balance shifted. A small increase in sunlight in the northern hemisphere began to tip the scale. Snow melted earlier each summer. Ice reflected less light. Dark rock and open ocean absorbed more heat. The Earth began to warm. A planet in motion, glaciers started to retreat. Across North America, the Great Laurentide ice sheet broke apart, releasing floods that carved canyons and lakes. In Europe, ice withdrew from the plains of Germany and Poland. Mountains emerged from beneath the frost after tens of thousands of years in darkness. Everywhere, rivers roared with meltwater. Sea levels began to rise, first centimetres, then metres, then tens of metres. Low-lying valleys filled with water. Ancient coastlines vanished beneath the waves. Within only 8,000 years, the ocean had climbed more than 100 metres. The continents we know today took shape, the drowning of the world. For humans living near the coasts, the change was dramatic. Villages built beside rivers were swallowed by new seas. Islands appeared where mountains once rose from dry plains. In Southeast Asia, the great landmass of Sunda flooded, creating thousands of islands. Modern Indonesia. To the north, the Bering Land Bridge disappeared beneath the Arctic Ocean, cutting Asia from America. In the Mediterranean, meltwater broke through the Bosporus, flooding a vast inland lake, what many believe became the Black Sea. Stories of great floods echo through the world's oldest myths. Perhaps they remember this moment, when ice gave way to water and the map of Earth was redrawn. The collapse of giants. As the world warmed, the age of the megafauna ended. Woolly mammoths, mastodons, giant sloths, and saber-toothed cats vanished within a few thousand years. Their disappearance was no single event. It was a slow unravelling. Climate, stress, shrinking habitat, and the arrival of a new and clever predator, humans. Archaeological sites across Siberia and North America show clear signs of hunting. Spears tipped with flint, bones marked by blades. As people spread, the great herds retreated, and then were gone. The loss of these animals changed the land itself. Without mammoths to trample snow and open grass, forests expanded. Dark trees absorbed more sunlight, accelerating the warming already underway. New rivers, new skies. With the ice retreating, the planet's atmosphere grew wetter. Rain replaced snow. Rivers carved new paths across continents. Lakes that had been trapped beneath glaciers burst their icy dams in cataclysmic floods. One such flood, in what is now the northwestern United States, released more water than all modern rivers combined. It scoured the land, leaving behind the canyons and rock basins of the channeled scablands, silent monuments to the power of melting ice. In the oceans, the changing currents redistributed heat. The great conveyor system that carries warm water north stabilized the climate. For the first time in tens of thousands of years, seasons returned to balance. Humans take root. As the ice retreated, humans followed. They moved into the newly opened valleys of Europe and Asia, hunting, gathering, and adapting to each shifting landscape. Along the Nile and the Euphrates, fertile plains formed from glacial dust. The first permanent settlements appeared near rivers fed by meltwater. In these places, people began to plant seeds, the earliest steps toward agriculture. The end of the Ice Age did not just warm the planet, it reshaped civilization. With stable seasons and reliable rainfall, farming replaced foraging. Villages became towns, and human history, as we know it, began. The sea rises higher, even as humanity flourished, the oceans kept climbing. By 9000 BC, coastlines had advanced inland by hundreds of kilometres. Coral reefs drowned, coastal forests turned to sea floor. In the North Atlantic, icebergs still drifted, cooling the water and shaping weather patterns that persist to this day. Antarctica, meanwhile, remained encased in ice, the last frozen remnant of a glacial world. Its vast white surface reflected sunlight, stabilizing Earth's temperature and marking the boundary between the age of ice and the age of man. The memory of ice. The legacy of that ancient cold is still visible. Valleys in Norway and New Zealand bear the U-shaped scars of glaciers. Boulders carried hundreds of kilometres rest on plains where no mountain exists. In Greenland and Antarctica, the ice still holds a record of every snowfall, layers stacked like pages in a book. By drilling deep into those sheets, scientists can read the story of climate itself. Volcanic eruptions, carbon fluctuations, even traces of prehistoric pollen. Each layer tells us how fragile balance truly is. Closing of Part 2. When the Ice Age ended, it left behind more than land and water. It left the foundation of everything that would follow. The climate that nurtured civilization, the rivers that became borders, the memory of a planet that can change completely. The story of the Ice Age is not just a history of cold, it is a reminder that Earth is never still, and that the forces which once buried continents in ice still move quietly beneath our feet. The rise of modern climate. By 10,000 BC, the long reign of ice had ended. The glaciers had retreated toward the poles, leaving behind lakes, fertile plains, and new coastlines. Earth entered what scientists call the Holocene, a period of relative warmth and stability that continues today. The transformation was global. In North America, the immense meltwaters of the Laurentide ice sheet filled basins that became the Great Lakes. In Europe, forests reclaimed lands that had been bare tundra for thousands of years. The Mediterranean region warmed, rain returned, and grasslands flourished. For the first time in millions of years, the planet's climate reached a balance gentle enough to nurture civilization. The birth of the modern world human societies began to change. In the Fertile Crescent, a stretch of land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, People learned to cultivate barley and wheat. With food storage came villages, and with villages came social order. In China, rice farming took root along the Yangtze. In Central America, maize and beans began their long journey toward domestication. Humanity was no longer at the mercy of the changing seasons. It had learned to shape them. As populations grew, people built permanent homes, traded goods, and developed rituals to honour the land and sky that sustained them. Every civilization that followed, from Mesopotamia to Egypt, from the Indus Valley to the Americas, was born from the stability that the end of the Ice Age had brought. The ghosts of ice. Though the great sheets were gone, their legacy remained visible. Beneath the soil, the planets still carried the scars of their retreat. The crust of the earth slowly rose, rebounding from the weight that had once pressed it down. Rivers adjusted their courses to new landscapes. In northern Europe and Canada, entire regions that once lay beneath glaciers were still slowly lifting, rising millimetre by millimetre each year. This movement continues today, a quiet echo of ancient pressure. Far beneath the surface, groundwater trapped by melting ice carved vast subterranean channels. Lakes formed and vanished again. In these shifting systems, the fingerprints of the Ice Age remain permanent, even as the world above moves forward. The return of warmth. As temperatures stabilised, vegetation spread northward. Birch, pine, and oak forests expanded across Eurasia. Herds of deer and wild horses followed the greenery. Wolves and bears returned to hunt. The changing environment also allowed humans to explore new frontiers. In the north, small groups ventured into regions that had been frozen wastelands only centuries earlier. The descendants of these pioneers became the first people of the Arctic. Elsewhere, the Sahara Desert was not yet a desert. It was a vast green plain crossed by rivers and dotted with lakes. Animals such as giraffes, elephants, and hippos thrived there, and early humans painted them on cave walls, proof that they had once lived side by side. For thousands of years the Sahara was fertile. Then, slowly, the rains shifted south. The grasslands faded, the rivers dried, and one of Earth's great transformations began, the birth of the desert as we know it today. The oceans of change. With the melting of ice came the reshaping of coastlines. New shallow seas formed where land had once existed. The North Sea filled, isolating Britain from mainland Europe. The Baltic became a brackish basin of salt and fresh water. In the Pacific, coral reefs flourished in warm, clear waters. Marine life diversified again, reclaiming the continental shelves that had been exposed during the glacial maximum. Whales migrated further north, following the plankton blooms stirred by the warmer currents. At the same time, rising seas forced human populations to adapt. Fishing communities developed along new coasts. Simple boats and rafts evolved into vessels capable of exploration. Step by step, humankind began to rediscover the world, not by foot, but by sea. The earth breathes again. The end of the Ice Age released enormous amounts of fresh water into the oceans, altering the planet's balance. For a time, scientists believed the influx disrupted major ocean currents, causing temporary cooling events. One such event, known as the Younger Dryas, struck roughly 12,900 years ago. Temperatures plummeted across the northern hemisphere. Glaciers briefly advanced. Forests shrank once more. It lasted for over 1,000 years before warming returned. The cause of the Younger Dryas remains debated. Some researchers suggest it was triggered by meltwater disrupting the Atlantic currents. Others believe a comet or meteor impact might have played a role. Whatever the cause, it was a reminder that Earth's climate could still shift with astonishing speed. When it ended, the modern climate system, the one we depend on today, finally stabilized. The world takes shape. By 8000 BC, the outlines of continents, oceans and ecosystems looked much as they do now. Rainforests spread through South America and Central Africa. The polar caps retreated to their current positions. Coastal plains became deltas rich in nutrients. It was a world transformed, and yet the traces of its icy past lay just below the surface. In caves, paintings told of hunts across frozen plains. In myths, stories of great floods and lost lands survived through generations. For early humans, memory of the Ice Age lingered in legend. For modern science, that memory is written in stone and ice. The last survivors, not all creatures of the cold vanished. A few adapted and endured. Musk oxen, caribou, and Arctic foxes still roam the tundra. In the oceans, seals and whales continue their ancient migrations between ice and open sea. The mammoth's relatives, the elephants, survived by moving into warmer climates. Their distant cousins, preserved in Siberian permafrost, still hold DNA so intact that scientists can read their genetic code. The story of a species that once ruled the frozen world. Some researchers even explore whether such DNA could one day bring these animals back, not as legends, but as living witnesses to the ice age that made us. Closing of Part 3. The retreat of the ice marked more than the end of a cold era. It marked the beginning of everything familiar. Forests, rivers, coasts, and civilizations built upon them. Earth had thawed, but it never forgot. Beneath our feet, in the rocks and the ice cores, lies the memory of that time. A record of a planet that can transform itself completely and yet find balance again. The story of the Ice Age was not only about survival in cold, it was about renewal in warmth. It was the story of a planet rediscovering its rhythm, and of a species learning to live in harmony with the changing Earth. Legacy of the Ice. The Ice Age never truly ended. It simply released its grip. Today's polar caps, glaciers and frozen tundra are the final breath of that ancient world. Every mountain glacier in the Alps, the Andes, or the Himalayas is a fragment of a once global engine of ice. The cold sculpted our continents. It carved valleys like Yosemite, shaped the fjords of Norway, and created the Great Lakes of North America. The soil that feeds modern agriculture was ground from rock by glaciers. Even the rivers that define our geography, the Rhine, the Thames, the Mississippi, follow paths set by melting ice more than 10,000 years ago. Without the Ice Age, there would be no fertile plains, no freshwater lakes, and perhaps no human civilization at all. The climate we inherited when the last great glaciers withdrew, Earth entered an unusually stable period. For nearly 12,000 years, the planet's temperature has varied only slightly. This stability allowed farming, cities, and technology to flourish. Human culture depends on that narrow band of comfort. But geological time teaches a humbling lesson. Stability is temporary. The same forces that froze the planet still operate quietly. The tilt of our axis, the shape of our orbit, the chemistry of our air. Left alone, Earth would one day slide again toward cold. Yet, for the first time, A single species has the power to alter that path. Echoes in ice deep within the ice of Greenland and Antarctica lies the archive of the planet's memory. Scientists drill through layers that record each winter's snow, each eruption, each breath of ancient air. Bubbles trapped inside reveal the composition of the atmosphere stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. Those records showed the rhythm of glacial cycles, rise and fall, freeze and thaw, repeating with perfect precision until the modern age. Then, about 2 centuries ago, the pattern breaks. Carbon dioxide levels begin to soar beyond anything seen in that long history. The new signal in the ice is unmistakable. Us, the planet that remembers. Every time a glacier melts, it reveals fossils, pollen, and artifacts sealed in ice for millennia. In the Alps, the body of a man preserved for 5,000 years, known as Utsi, emerged from retreating ice. In Siberia, mammoths still lie frozen with grass in their mouths. In Canada, forests long buried under permafrost are reappearing, their wood intact. The planet remembers everything. It hides its past until warmth unlocks it. And as the ice retreats again, the world reveals not only what once was, but what may come next. Lessons of the past. The Ice Age teaches that climate can change dramatically, even without human influence. A shift of only a few degrees can transform continents. Sea levels can rise or fall by hundreds of meters. Ecosystems can vanish and new ones emerge. For ancient humans, these shifts were matters of survival. For modern humans, they are matters of choice. We can see the consequences written in stone and ice and decide whether we repeat them. Our technology now releases carbon into the air faster than any volcanic cycle in history. If unchecked, the warmth that ended the Ice Age could pale beside what lies ahead. The same seas that once drowned ancient valleys are rising again. The difference is that this time the cause is not orbital motion or solar rhythm. It is us, the shape of the future. If the glaciers of Greenland and Antarctica were to melt completely, sea levels would rise more than 60 meters. Coastal cities from New York to Shanghai would disappear. Ocean currents would shift. Weather patterns that feed our crops could fail. Yet the story of the Ice Age offers hope. The planet has recovered before. It has endured extremes greater than any we can imagine. Life has adapted, evolved, and flourished after every crisis. The question is not whether Earth will survive. It is whether we will thrive with it or without it. Epilogue. Look at the world today. The mountains, the rivers, the soil beneath our feet, all are gifts of the Ice Age. The cold that once seemed endless gave us the landscape on which history would unfold. And though the glaciers have mostly vanished, their legacy endures in every drop of water that flows from the mountains, in every valley carved by their weight, in every memory of a planet that once slept beneath snow. The Ice Age was not an ending. It was a beginning, the moment Earth prepared itself for us. And as the last remnants of that ancient cold fade away, the story continues, written not in stone or ice, but in the choices of those who now walk the world it left behind.